And so here I am up here. This is my first time sitting up here at this table in any capacity. So I would, I'd appreciate any grace you'd extend me until I get used to doing this when this happens. So as we have it here, it's going Grant Cothran's going to give our invocation, and then Jerry Ford's going to do the pledge of the flag. And then and then of course, Jack will do his mayor report. We're going to jump down here to committee reports that they've all met. It's listed here, and then our active business we're going to be going forward is bringing forward is these resolutions. Resolution 2023-26-795 is the commission committee appointments, and there's one addition the mayor has asked for, and that's Leslie Overman to finance. It looks like it's grown a little bit, and that committee's grown a little bit, and our council is going to look into that as well to make sure we're all squared away on that. Anybody has anything they'd like to add to? Or
so we have 8 members of the
that's what he'd like to bring forward. When's he be back?
I believe next Saturday.
So after next Saturday, I guess I'd reach out to him and maybe talk to him, Landon, see what his thought process is and stuff.
He is reading emails.
He is reading emails. Okay, good to know. Fantastic. The next thing we're going to have, next order we're going to have is these ordinances. We're going to start with number 1, which is going to be ordinance 297-2023-34. That's to amend zoning ordinance of adding section 3.120. And David Thomas will be able to speak on that one.
Yes, sir. That is the ordinance that was before last month. This ordinance has been amended per the amendment that was passed that night. And also, you'll notice that the section number on that has changed from section 4 to section 3. Mr. Gully brought up in executive that number was on the previous was incorrect, and in his point, it was incorrect in fact of the numbering being in section 4. So since that was going to have to be corrected, I was talking with Rick Gregory, our consultant, who's cleaning up our codes and zoning, and in talking with him and discussing it in the Code and Zoning subcommittee, we decided that it would better fit into section 3 versus section 4. So that is the reason that has been changed. It is the same ordinance with that amendment. Now, when it came through the subcommittee, we also made a change to the wording on the heading. That's how I can read it all. So before it was preferred materials, limited materials, and prohibited materials. We changed that to preferred road frontage building materials. Talking with Rick again, the verbiage of prohibited materials, it gave a sour taste when looking at the state state law of not being able to prohibit materials. So we wanted to state that we weren't prohibiting these materials on the building. We were just, these are only responsible for the road frontage, wall of the building. The additions of the aluminum and metal siding has been added to the limited road frontage. The hard coat and textured stucco, surface concrete or split face block has been added to the preferred. You will notice that industrial has been taken out of this per that amendment that was passed that night. One more, and then that sentence in section B, the prohibited wall materials shall not be used on any road frontage exteriors. So that sentence was corrected. And those were everything that came through planning presented this way. They make no additional changes and send it forward with approval.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. So the next thing we're going to have is ordinance 298-20. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. I did not mean to skip over you. Yes, go ahead, Chris.
The question is quite typical, Mr. Taylor. If state law says we can't prohibit materials, are we okay? You think to prohibit on part of business or?
That's going to be probably somebody that's got a little higher aptitude than that I do, but I can tell you as a general principle, when there's a Tennessee code annotated, you cannot supersede unless you have been given that authority by the state of Tennessee. So if the state of Tennessee says, this is your standard, then you abide by that standard. We can't, that'll be the minimum threshold of that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't give more, latitude you can't be more restrictive, but that doesn't mean you can't be less restrictive.
Ms. Kerr actually had her hand up. Judy, Ms. Kerr, did you have your hand up first?
She's answered.
Okay, good. David, please.
So, Mr. Miller, in looking at this originally, talking with GNRC, we cannot prohibit, but we can regulate how much. Both Gallatin, Sumner County, Lebanon, Mount Juliet, all have much more restrictive than what this proposes.
Well, that's interesting because under their contract, is that a legal opinion that they're rendering? Because I thought their contract specifically precluded them from doing that.
That's just the advice I gave, and then when I looked into Sumner counties, actually Gallatin's was what I looked at.
Mr. Thomas, just as a recommendation, I'd get that in writing from GNRC. I would get that in writing for that, and then I would abide by that. It's my recommendation.
Being that.
An email would be fine.
So being that Gallatin already has that as a law, we took their recommendation based on an existing municipality already having it as a law.
And that's fine. I don't mind, using from municipality to municipality, but there's a lot of things that are grandfathered in. And as long as they're willing to state to this body that we can legally do that, I'm fine with that. I don't have a bit of trouble with that. I'll follow suit with Gallatin. But I've just my experience in past experiences, I'm not sure they'd be willing to do that.
Anybody else? Okay, then we'll move on. So now we're gonna take a look at ordinance 298, 2023, 35, rezoning A1 to R1 for 3220 Highway 25 West, as well as 299, 2023, 36, rezoning A1 to R1 for 3370 Highway 25 West. And I have down here the notes that Ms. Rosalie can speak to that.
Well, actually, we do have those that are requesting to have the zoning here. If they would like to speak to these zoning, then I'll go in.
Would you guys like to speak?
Now, have you started your meeting or are you just going over your agenda?
We're going over the agenda.
Okay. So do we need to speak later or now?
Now, please.
Okay, okay.
When we started the meeting.
I don't know.
Well, you speak yours and then I'll speak on
Okay.
the phone.
The 3220 is a little under 5 acres, is where my lot is. We had a variance to build our house on 2 acres instead of 3 acres 35 years ago. Just to bring it to continuity into what is accepted as R1. Felt like it needed to go to R1. Talking about the farm, the other tract is owned by myself, Arthur Joe's brothers and Johnny. And we're wanting to sell the old house, what some of you remember Miss Martha May's house, with an acre. We don't want to sell it with 3 acres, we just want to sell it with an acre. And felt like that would be considered spot zoning if we just tried to rezone 1 acre. So we're asking to rezone the entire property. That way sometime in the future, if somebody in the family wants to come in and cut an acre off to build a house or something, with just some flexibility going forward. Doesn't change the taxation on the property. It's not going to change the use of the property. It's still going to be farmed. It just gives us some flexibility going forward. Planning Commission, I think, did approve it unanimously, recommended to the body, and certainly if you have any questions of me or Johnny, we'd be glad to answer them. There's no plans at current to divide it up in any way other than to cut off that 1 acre. Just felt like I'd go ahead and do mine at the same time, so that entire block, that entire tract, you might say corner of the land would all be zoned R1. Any questions? Is that clear as mud? I see some.
I did notice it was posted down there, rezoned it, so nobody
Yeah.
had any questions about it.
I've had one or two people in the public ask me, and when I explained to them what we were doing, they seemed fine with it. Ms. Rosalie, I know you said you had a few phone calls about it.
Yes, which was really quite interesting. Within 30 minutes of posting the sign out there on 25, I get back to the office. There's someone calling, asking about the rezoning. What does this mean? So obviously the signs are working.
The sign,
I mean,
the signs do work. I notice it every day on work, and I mean, that really helps.
I'm trying to place my cover, where, put them here, I think people will see them more, so we certainly try to put them where they fit. Nothing nefarious about it, just trying to give us a little flexibility.
Thanks.
Also, I'd like to point out too, if you look at the maps where included with the rezoning request, you'll see that, yes, indeed, there are other R1 zones across Highway 25, so this does lend a lot of credibility to the request to have a rezone.
Mr. Kerr, would you like to speak on the other one?
Well, actually, Dwight spoke on both of them.
Okay. That's what you want.
So,
Yeah.
He did a great job. I don't really have anything to add to it. I mean, it's tough when you sell your old home place. That's been in our family since 1895. The house we're wanting to cut off and sell, I was born in 1952. But, circumstances have gotten me, and Dwight and I have grown up enough that we spook with renting anymore, and we want to get out of it. And so, and we did not want to, we've all rezoned things before for people with 1 acre so they could put them a family. That spot zoning, no matter what, we didn't want to do that. And so that's why we're redoing the whole thing. And it may give some future benefits, maybe to our heirs. But and maybe even to us. I mean, who knows? Mr. Moneybags may come down the road in a few years and make it. You never know about something like that. But that's what we're doing. That's not the meaning behind it. It's just to kind of get everything in order while we're still young enough to get it in order.
Understood. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for him? Okay. So then moving on, we've got our budget amendments here that will be covered, and I was going to see if Landon would like to speak on those.
Don't mind at all. All amendments headed our way, budget amendments, and were approved tonight in finance committee. I think all were unanimous in the vote of approval. So everything comes with a favorable recommendation is what I'm saying. The sheriff's dispatcher, there was some discussion on in the September meetings, why it was postponed to October. That this will create an 8th position. It was in the 101 for 4 dispatchers during budget times, but in the 111, it came through with 3 dispatchers. So one of those dispatchers was left out at that point in time. This would create an 8th position this year in the sheriff's department. 4 patrol and 4 dispatch, I believe is the way, or 3 dispatching, 1 something else, I believe, correct. 1 square. 1.
Yes.
There we go. I knew it was 3, 4, and 1. Couldn't remember what the other was. Any questions there? Okay.
Not directed at you, because I don't know. During budget hearings, the sheriff asked for 7 positions. Why all of a sudden, how does he want an 8?
As I stated, there was some miscommunication, it seems like. He had asked for 4 dispatchers in the 101 and was hoping to have 4 dispatchers in the 111. When the 111 was approved, it was approved with 3 dispatchers, not the 4. I do not disagree that the sheriff mentioned 7 positions, not 8.
Yeah, it was 4 deputies, 2 dispatchers, and a warrants clerk. He originally made that request at law enforcement committee, but back in January, I think it. So it was 7, 7, 7 all along, and now all of a sudden it's 8.
I will not disagree with you. The discrepancy appears, I believe, if I understand, he was asking for 111 to have 2 dispatchers on it. And when 111 approved their budget, it approved with 1 dispatcher, not 2. That's as clear as I can be on it. Okay.
It's basically an oversight. Ish.
If you understand what I'm saying, there, 111 Urban Service voted to not fund a second, an additional second position for dispatch. So therefore it was not funded. Because we'll talk about it. It was requested but not funded, even though he mentioned 7, he was asking for 8.
Okay. So do you have anything else on this?
Any other questions? Most of the rest of this that you see are grant pieces that are moving. There are some county fund balance pieces, boardwalk on the roadway, sidewalks here that we're talking about. There's a $65,000 match there, on a $700,000 project that we're talking about. We hope that stays at that cost. I'll just mention it that way. Otherwise, everything else was approved their grants and moved through. There's a little bit of discussion we're asked for on the health department. It appears the health department addition has changed, but I don't know that that's been to the commission and knowing what that change is. Originally, the health department was asking the road supervisor to donate a piece of land, I believe is the way that was asked, a portion, because the building was gonna get onto the highway department's property. There was a discussion there. Now that it appears not being asked, it has changed. We are going to try to get further information about that in the near future. But otherwise, it's still the same. The building has changed somehow, but we don't know what change has been made. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks. Anybody else have any questions for Commissioner Keller? Okay, so moving forward, is there any other business needs to come forward? Anybody from the public like to make a comment? Okay. I was wondering, before we take a motion to adjourn, I would like to make sure everybody takes a chance to look. They've recast the committees and added one. So take a look at that and we'll bring that up next time. And now we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We'll be adjourned.